There are hundreds of protesters here today on Capitol Hill demonstrating against the confirmation vote of Judge Brett Kavanaugh. Bee pollination services have an economic value of $3 billion a year. Tennessee drivers pay 21.4 cents in taxes per gallon of fuel. Multiple messages were written in chalk, like the one behind me, saying never again. So how concerned should the American people be about our security in the Arctic? One of the voters that we talked to said that she was actually really happy that Manchin voted for Kavanaugh, so I think that did help him there. Governor Haslam's Improve Act raises fuel taxes to pay for Tennessee roads. University of Tennessee student Jared Nelson says a tax increase may benefit college students.
We don't tend to commute too far. We tend to live pretty close to campus, so it might end up actually being kind of a fiscal positive for us.
West Tennessee student Cody Sane says the tax may help repair the roads.
So in the long run, I feel like wearing my vehicle out faster is going to have a larger economic impact on me than raising the gas tax slightly.
Economics professor Matthew Murray says students and faculty share a lesser burden than rural community members.
The burden would come for low-income households, and in particular low-income households that reside in rural parts of the state, where driving large numbers of miles is just something that those people have to do.
Murray says Tennessee surplus funds are not a long-term solution to pay for better roads.
The reality is, while there is a surplus, the state also needs to plow money into the rainy day fund. There are other uses for those funds, and it is not a long-term source of revenue to fund the roads.
Tennessee drivers pay 21.4 cents in taxes per gallon of fuel. Residents remain divided on Governor Haslam's proposal to increase the price you pay at the pump. Student Greg Butcher speaks to Tennessee residents about the negative impacts of a gas tax.
Our state has a budget surplus, and a pretty substantial budget surplus, a lot of it recurring, a part of it's one-time money. But I think most voters and most Tennesseans would agree that if we have a budget surplus, if you're taking too much of my taxes, there is absolutely no reason to justify raising taxes.
Out-of-state student Maya McCullough says the gas tax may alter her travel home.
It does make, it's kind of like a burden that, I normally can fill up my tank, maybe $25, $30 max with premium gas. So having that gas tax, I wouldn't say it would inhibit me from going home, but it does, kind of like set me back just a little bit.
The Improve Act collects funds for 962 future road and infrastructure projects in all 95 counties. This little fish is turning science fiction into a reality. Scientists say the zebrafish, a member of the minnow family, may hold the key to human limb regeneration. That's right. This fish could one day help humans regrow missing arms and legs. Because zebrafish have 70% of the same genes as humans, Georgetown University Medical Center's Eric Glasgow says they're a great model for understanding the human body.
Just using the zebrafish as an animal vessel to be able to observe the behavior of your cells.
Head of NIH's Institute of General Medical Sciences oversees zebrafish research, and he says you only have to look at what happens when a zebrafish loses a fin.
If they lose their tail fin, they can regrow it completely, perfectly new. And so that's a very useful way to study this pathway, this process of regeneration.
Here is a zebrafish fin before amputation. Once the fin is cut, it begins regeneration immediately. Over the course of about 20 days, the fin grows back to its original size and shape.
By studying how the fish are able to regenerate, we can learn what's going on differently in humans and help regeneration.
And zebrafish are just the start. Glasgow says he thinks human limb regeneration won't be possible until zebrafish studies can be replicated in the regeneration of other species. Regenerating mouse eyes is the next target. But the program has critics. People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals says it's a huge scientific stretch to suggest that zebrafish could lead to human limb regeneration.
These are the things that experimenters are doing, manipulating the animal's genetic integrity to try to inflict some kind of disease in them to model human disease.
Despite that skepticism and concern for the well-being of animals in research labs, NIH continues to study zebrafish at all stages of life for regenerative and cancer research. And it helps that they're see-through.
They have a period of their life cycle where they're transparent, so you can actually see through the embryos and see all the different organs and structures very clearly.
Limb regeneration is not the only goal here. The regeneration of fish eyes, hearts, and spines has helped researchers understand the potential for regrowing tissues in the human body. This is Beverly Banks reporting.
I felt like my vote was important and I needed to make it.
I think it's my civic duty.
Yeah, I think it's important that we have a candidate that, or a person in office that will represent Tennessee.
Knox County voters stood in line at Farragut Town Hall and downtown West polling stations to exercise their right to vote. Many voters say they are motivated by policy issues rather than the candidates on the ballot. Elisa Grant cast her ballot for Democrat Senate candidate Phil Bredesen because she believes he will address healthcare policy.
What are we going to do about the opioid crisis? How are we not going to fuel that? How can we make a stand and make our voice heard with regard to the current administration?
Tennessee voters turned out in record numbers for early voting in the 2018 midterm election this year. Early and absentee turnout more than doubled, from 634,000 in the 2014 midterms to 1.3 million this year. Here in Knox County, the vote totals jumped from over 57,000 in 2014 to over 117,000 in 2018. We're here in Knoxville, Tennessee, where many voters have come out to vote early in this year's midterm elections. Now, we're covering the election between Phil Bredesen and Marsha Blackburn. What we've heard thus far is that people are really split on who to vote for, and many of the issues that are concerning a lot of the voters deal with education and border security. Knox County voter Mark Larson said he's voting to stop the political polarization in Washington.
The stuff that's going on in Washington always kind of concerns me because it's so much adversarial and that type of thing. So hopefully we can go ahead and get to a point where it's common.
LaTanya Lee said her disappointment with President Trump's agenda drove her to vote early.
To be honest with you, Washington, Trump, just, I don't know. I just feel like it makes a difference, so.
Early voting ended on November 1, but given the strength of the turnout so far, November 6th is set to be a record election. For the Medill News Service, this is Beverly Banks reporting.
It was 36 hours. I am on the track of the condom. 36 hours.
Shekhali Mirzai is a refugee from Afghanistan living in Paris. He's describing his difficult journey as he rode under the wheel of a truck to arrive in Europe.
I lost my leg with a mine telecommand. I don't know like that. The country with the country that is.
After losing his leg, Shekhali fled his home to escape threats to his life and settled in a Paris refugee camp. He received a sleeping bag and a tent from Compassion Without Borders when he arrived from Afghanistan to Paris. Compassion Without Borders is a club at the American School of Paris. It provides blankets and food to refugees. Students were moved after hearing Shekhali's story. Regan Meek is one of those students. She says she's proud of this club and how it helps the community.
A lot of other clubs, even in the whole world, they help other parts of the world, but no one really helps their community. And that's what I really liked about Compassion Without Borders, is that it was helping the big refugee crisis in Paris, because it's really an issue. And I think being able to help in any way that I can is really monumental for me.
Other students like Elliot Levy want to inspire young people to provide support and resources to refugees.
Everywhere that everyone could know what we do and contribute and inspire other people to do some clubs that are maybe more detailed into a certain type of help and trying to expand it and help as much people as possible.
For Shekhali, these students are changing how the world views refugees.
And I will be ask you why you didn't think like other people. Why you helped the refugees?
Regan hopes Compassion Without Borders expands to help more refugees in Paris.
The fact that it has grown into what it is already is quite amazing, but I think it can definitely expand and help 10 times more people than it is already today.
The club also spreads its message of compassion through other programs such as free tours of Paris that help refugees integrate into French society. In Paris, for the Medill News Service, this is Beverly Banks reporting.